The beautiful nature in America has inspired awe since civilization existed. The vast amount of varying landscapes, so diverse, so different, from rocky terrain to beautiful lakes to crazy mountainous areas to places that feel like you're on Mars. There are so many different types of landscapes amongst the United States, and I'm really excited to share with you guys this video of our 21-day road trip across the western side of the United States. In this video, we travel through Arizona, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and California. To be honest, over the last couple years, I found myself less interested in visiting the domestic United States, and I've been more focused on traveling around the world to as many countries as possible. But 2020 happened to be a much different year than the others, where we found ourselves being locked within our countries and specifically within our homes. Having the travel itch totally take over this year, my friends and I wanted to find the best way to explore the United States while not putting other people at risk during the pandemic, and so we said, let's do a road trip in an RV and camp out around the United States. So I'm really excited about this video because this was one of my favorite trips I have ever done. I think a big part of it was the people, but more importantly for this video and for you guys, I want to share with you this amazing itinerary we put together, which covers some of the best places to see in the United States. I want to mention though, because COVID was in place this year, there were a few places we could not go to during our route, and there's also a few places we weren't able to go to just because we were limited on 21 days, which is a lot, but we traveled somewhere around 4,500 miles and we covered so much. But I want to also mention that if you guys want to find out even more recommendations on what to do when you're traveling to all these places around the country, make sure to check out my travel guide. It is a massive travel guide which covers everything from RV tips, this itinerary way more in detail, packing tips, it covers alternate options, places to stay, places to eat, and so much more. It will make your time planning a road trip so easy. We put hours and hours and hours into creating the perfect itinerary, and all you need to do is rent your RV, bring this guide with you, and you're gonna have an amazing trip. I'll put a link down in the description below if you guys want to check it out. But anyways guys, let's go ahead and jump right into our 21-day road trip itinerary. So for us, we found our RV through rvshare.com. It's basically the Airbnb of RVs. There's other sites like outdoorsy.com, and then there's bigger companies like Cruise America, which we did on another road trip. But overall, I found the best value to be on RV Share, and take a look at the RV we got. It's a $150,000 RV that between 7 friends and I, it made it very affordable. And I will say, getting an RV like that probably would not have been feasible if you went to like a local RV shop. Probably would have been triple the price, but we were able to get a great deal from using RV Share. So I highly recommend that. I'll put a link in the description below. So one thing I want to mention is we were looking between Las Vegas and Phoenix, and we found that Phoenix had more options to rent RVs through RV Share, and that's ultimately where we found our dream RV for this trip, which means my friends and I needed to fly into the Phoenix airport, pick up our RV, and that is where we began our 21-day road trip. We just arrived here down in Phoenix, Arizona, where we're gonna pick up our RV and put on 3,500 miles over the next 3 weeks. So to drive from Phoenix to the Grand Canyon, it's about 3.5 hours to get you to the rim where we started our first evening on the road trip. All right guys, we are almost to our first destination of the 21-day road trip, and we are going to finish off the day today enjoying an epic sunset in the canyon. So we'll see you when we get there. The Grand Canyon is arguably one of the most famous national parks in the United States, especially if you're thinking of a West Coast road trip. The Grand Canyon is going to be top of your list, and for good reason too. It is magnificent. We arrived that evening to the Grand Canyon just in time to catch the sunset, to catch our first glimpse of what this 21-day road trip was going to look like. We stayed in the South Kaibab National Forest. The great part about most national forests is you can actually camp in them for free. So that made our first 2 nights in the Grand Canyon free for us to stay overnight and have an awesome in the wilderness type feeling campsite. The next morning we started very early with a 6 a.m. wake up call. Good morning guys, we are up at the absolute crack of dawn here, catching the sunrise. Of course, you'll probably see a theme in this video that catching sunrises and sunsets in all the places we go, we tried to as much as possible. For our 6 a.m. wake-up call, we walked over to what we thought was going to be the trail, but we ultimately created our own trail because we got a little bit lost. That said, we found a beautiful lookout point to view the Grand Canyon right at the golden hour, and then we ended up making our way back onto the trail and finding one of the main viewpoints to check out, which was a stunning place to start the day off.
We just got to the next insane viewpoint here, which happened to be a hotel back in 1898. Like, if this was a hotel now, this would probably be thousands of dollars per night. Look at these views, they are just unbelievable.
So after our sunrise hike, we made our way back over to the campsite to hang out, have some lunch, and get ready for our afternoon hike, which was really probably the main highlight, I would say, of us visiting the Grand Canyon, and that was to hike the South Kaibab Trail.
All right, the crew is out here for the second half of the day. We are doing a 1.5 hour hike.
The South Kaibab Trail sits on the south rim of the Grand Canyon. It's about a 7-mile hike, but you can go much further, or you can also not go as far as we went. Personally, I recommend hiking down into the Grand Canyon. I think the statistic is something like 99% of the people that visit the Grand Canyon don't ever even hike into the Grand Canyon, and I will say it was even more beautiful than looking at it from above. Once you're actually down in there, you totally feel how vast this place is, and you can see so many more beautiful parts of it, so I recommend it. It's your first bigger hike of the trip, and that one's definitely going to have you working up a sweat in that hot desert heat, so pack some granola bars, pack that water, and you'll be good to go. Day number 3 of the road trip, we made a bunch of different stops, the first one being Horseshoe Bend.
All right, guys, we have just arrived at the famous Horseshoe Bend. Super pumped up to be here.
Horseshoe Bend is one of the most picturesque spots on your way to Zion National Park, where we're ultimately going to end up at the end of today, but it is so beautiful. You have the Colorado River just wrapping around in a horseshoe shape, and you have the beautiful orange cliffs just surrounding it. A must visit if you're driving in this direction. After that, we were able to cruise maybe 30 or 40 minutes down the road and find a great lookout spot to check out Lake Powell, get some swimming in. I will mention with Lake Powell, if you have time, you can spend way more time. It's a really famous man-made lake that has so many activities, like houseboats is a huge thing that people do, jet skiing on it, and just enjoying the beautiful lake and the surrounding areas. It is well worth at least a short stop just like we did. After driving a few more hours towards Zion National Park, you can make a stop over at Coral Pink Sand Dunes State Park.
Honestly, this day just keeps getting better and better. We have our final stop of the day here, which is the Coral Pink Sand Dunes.
This is a really cool spot, especially if you're there around sunset. We made it there just a few minutes after sunset, but enough to explore it with a little bit of remaining light. This place is awesome because you have these sand dunes that make you feel like you're in Egypt or somewhere in the Sahara Desert.
We just did a pretty quick stop here, and it was well worth the stop. I mean, you can see most of it in 10-15 minutes. It's just a short walk from the parking lot.
If you have the time, you can rent dune buggies or dirt bikes and go ripping across these mounds.
Would have loved to come here earlier and grab some dune buggies ourselves or a sandboard. So if you have extra time, definitely make sure you stop and do that, because you will have a blast. I can tell all these people that are doing it right now at the end of the golden hour are having the time of their lives.
After driving a couple more hours from Coral Pink Sand Dunes State Park, we made our way up to Zion, where we arrived at the Zion Canyon Campground and RV Park, where we stayed the night for the next 3 nights. So on day number 4 of the road trip, you're going to want to wake up bright and early to do one of the most famous trails in Zion National Park, which is Angel's Landing. Now, I will say if you're afraid of heights, it might not be the one you want to do, but it is a great one if you don't mind. There's basically chains to walk up the very steep sides of the Angel's Landing trail, which offers an amazing experience, beautiful views. I will emphasize to be very careful going up there because it can be very dangerous to climb. In between your next hike, you're going to want to head down into town to get ready for tomorrow's hike, which is going to be through one of the most famous places to go in Zion outside of Angel's Landing, which is the Narrows hike. This was probably number 2 favorite hike of the whole 21-day road trip. I'll tell you later in the video what was my number 1, but at this point it was the Narrows hike. So the Narrows hike is basically a hike where you need to have waterproof shoes and a hiking stick to get through, because you're actually hiking through a river. It sounds much harder than it is, and I'm sure it is when the water levels are really high, so you need to always watch that before you go. But given the water levels aren't too high and you are able to hike this trail, you want to go into town and rent a pair of hiking boots, and it comes with a walking stick too. It's roughly about $25 for the rental, and you can grab those so you'll have them ready for tomorrow morning's hike. After we picked up our boots, a couple of us went to go pick up a rental car for the next couple of days. That way we had the option to drive in and out of Zion National Park. Depending on the time of year though, if the shuttle's there, you might not need the rental car. For us, we did because the shuttle wasn't operating due to COVID. So after we picked up the rental car, on our way heading over to the Upper Emerald Pools Trail, make sure you enjoy the Zion Scenic Drive coming in. This is one of the most beautiful drives in the United States. You're driving through the winding roads through the cliffs, and it is stunning. It's time to take a hike up to Kayoneta to the Upper Emerald Pools.
So we're taking Kayoneta Trail all the way up to Emerald Pools, which gives you huge, really cool reflections and really tall mountain peaks.
This one's a really nice hike. We did it right at sunset. Now you can't see sunset too well from that point, but you could see it enough where it lights up all of the rocks really beautifully in the sun mixed with the orange rocks. We really enjoyed doing this hike in the afternoon, and once you get up there, you have some really cool spots to take some photos. You have the ledges of the cliffs and the mountains just towering right over you, which offers a really cool picturesque spot. So going into day 5, you're gonna want to get up bright and early.
Good morning, guys. It is 4:30 a.m. and we're heading to the Narrows hike.
Now, one thing I want to mention is depending on when you're going, you need to look at the Zion National Park website and find out what the deal is with the Narrows hike. When we were there, we were able to drive our car up to the trailhead and then find parking.
So guys, make sure if you're coming here to the Narrows hike and you're taking a car that you arrive super early. We arrived here around 4:45 and sat in line as car number 137 roughly, and we still didn't get a spot in the lot right up front here. So luckily we have a couple other people who are going to park the car while we hold down the fort here. But just keep in mind, you do need to wake up super early if you want to get in and get a spot.
Now, I know later on this year, since I've gone, I've heard from other people that there's a shuttle that takes you to the Narrows, which is really nice if the shuttle's operating and you can go in there, but it's also nice to drive through if you get that opportunity to. Luckily, we were able to make it into the Narrows hike before a lot of people arrived.
We just made it to the head of the Narrows hike. It was just about a 1-mile hike from the main parking lot, and now we're gonna head into one of the most famous hikes in the world. I am so excited for this.
One thing I want to mention to you is that if you don't like waking up early, this is the one time you should make sure you wake up early to enjoy the Narrows hike for 2 reasons. Number one, when the sun is coming out and it's shining into the Narrows hike, you're in between 2 massive cliffs. And so when the sun shines in there, everything lights up in this beautiful gold color. And when we were walking back, hiking back later on in the day, in the middle of the day when the sun was shining directly down, the place did not look the same. Yes, it was still magnificent and stunning, but it was so much more beautiful to hike it in the morning. And the second reason is there was way less people. When we were walking back about 6-7 hours later, it was filled up with so many people. If you want a photo op making it look like you're the only one there, when we were up really early, it felt like we were the only ones there because we wouldn't have too many people pass us. So we were able to stop, get photos, enjoy it, and it really felt like we had the place to ourselves for most of the hike. So after the Narrows hike, get some rest, get some food, and get ready to do a very short hike in the evening. Right at sunset, a great place to go and enjoy the sunset is the Canyon Overlook Trail. This is a, I don't know, maybe 10-15 minute hike to get up to the top, and you can hang out there. Be careful on the ledges though, it's really steep, but it gives you this beautiful view looking over, and you can see the winding roads in the distance.
Good morning, guys. Today is day number 6 of our 21-day road trip around the western side of the United States. We just left Zion National Park and we're about an hour and a half away from Bryce Canyon.
Bryce Canyon is a smaller national park, definitely in comparison to Grand Canyon and in comparison to Zion National Park, but it is stunning. It's really a very unique place because they have these hoodoos, very unique name. I don't know if I've ever even heard of them before going to Bryce Canyon, but they are so cool. As soon as you arrive there, you feel like you're on Mars. So that first evening after checking into our campsite, we took a hike over to Inspiration Point. This was a great time to look at Bryce Canyon as the sun's setting. Once again, lots of sunrise, sunset times. We spent some time walking around the rim of Bryce Canyon, which was really cool to see it from a few different angles and get a feel for what the landscapes in Bryce Canyon were like. So going into day number 7, another sunrise hike. So hope you're excited, hope you're ready to wake up early.
Now we're up here 5 a.m. bright and early. Colors are looking beautiful, and we're heading over to Sunrise Point where we're going to see some beautiful colors of the golden hour.
It's a great time once again to see Bryce Canyon early in the morning and do a different trail that actually leads you down into the canyon. The first night we hiked Bryce Canyon from above where we could see down into the canyon, but today we're actually going down in elevation to explore what it felt like being inside the area of hoodoos. And then after you get your AM hike in, today is a big driving day. It's almost all reserved for driving all the way up to Jackson Hole. This is one of the longest drives you'll do. We only made a couple stops on the way for food and gas, but other than that, we drove pretty much straight through to get up to Jackson Hole for the night. So Jackson Hole is a really cool place. It has a lot of energy. There's a lot of fun bars to go to, and you totally get your Western experience checking out this place. So going into day number 8, we needed to find a campsite, and we wanted to stay in another national forest for it to be free, of course, since we didn't need the generator and plumbing hookup. And so we found the Bridger-Teton National Forest. So before you make your way over to Bridger-Teton National Forest, you'll want to stop at the visitor and the info center. They'll give you all the information you need to know and also allow you to book a campsite. We're going to do an overnight hike on day number 9, and so we needed to book a campsite way up in the mountains where we were hiking to, and this wasn't an RV campsite, it was actually a campsite that we're bringing a tent and staying the night in for one of the nights. If you don't want to do this though, still go to the visitor center and they can give you recommendations on other hikes to do in the area. The Bridger-Teton National Forest. This was probably top 2 favorite campsites. 1, because it was free, and number 2, because we had a really cool secluded spot. Some of my friends are DJs, so we were able to play some loud music without disrupting anyone, and we had an awesome river right behind us for us to bathe, do our dishes, totally do the outdoor camping lifestyle. Obviously, we didn't necessarily need to use the river to do all that cleaning, but since we were limited on water that we had in our RV and we were going to be staying for a few nights without a plumbing hookup, we wanted to conserve water, and it worked out great. So for part of this day, we just hung out and enjoyed the campsite, got a campfire going, and played a little bit of music. After spending some time hanging out in the campsite, we made our way over to the Grand Teton National Park, and we did the Jenny Lake Trail. This trail brought us along some amazing views up to Jenny Lake, and it was a nice time to go at sunset. There weren't as many people there. Keep in mind, in the Grand Teton, you're going to see a lot of wildlife. That was our first big encounter where we ran into some moose on the trail, which happened to be one of the most aggressive animals in North America, so be safe, keep your distance from them. You do not want one of those things charging you. Going into day number 9, this was a big day.
We're packing our bags up right now to go do a 9-mile hike up into the mountains. We're bringing an 8-person tent, and we're going to be staying there overnight.
We left our RV back at the campsite.
We're going to be heading up to Phelps Lake first. About a couple mile trail right up through, and that takes you to Death Canyon. Death Canyon is where we got our official backcountry permit. It's a good about 8 to 9 mile hike up, but make sure you reserve ahead of time because these fill up quick, sometimes 6 to 8 months in advance. So make sure you stop at the ranger station, get your pass online or in person, and that way you can get a good spot up there in the backcountry.
It was a stunning hike. It was a lot of work to get up there, but it was so worth it because the Grand Teton mountains are just unbelievable. They offer so many picturesque views. I feel like constantly on the way up, we were in awe looking at the amazing landscapes and scenery.
We have finally arrived after 11.6 miles, and it was 31.03 minutes per mile. And we're lucky to have made it here with still enough daylight where we can pitch the tent. I was a bit concerned that we were going to make it after dark and we were going to have to scramble with some cell phone lights. Check out the campsite. It's a pretty sick spot. We have rock cliffs where we can hang out on. We have a nice flat area to put the tent, and it's going to be a really beautiful place to wake up to. I can just tell by where the sun's going to rise from. It'll shine right through the pine trees, so I'm super excited to see that. And voila, the tent is up just in time before the sun sets, and it is a crib. Oh yeah. Yeah, the crib, MTV crib. All right guys, I think we're gonna go ahead and call it a night, put the camera away because it's time to eat either a PB&J or a ham and cheese, something great, and then enjoy these views before the sun sets. So we'll see you in the AM.
So going into day number 10, we hiked back down another long hike. On your way down, you're seeing the same views, but you're seeing it now in the morning, so it does offer some differentiation from the hike up yesterday afternoon. And it is a great way to get some morning exercise. Let me tell you that we were all exhausted by the time we made it back to our campsite, which had us spending the rest of day 10 enjoying time at the campsite, hanging out by the campfire. We brought a couple hammocks to hang out in, so it was a nice relaxing day to catch our breath after a very strenuous 24 hours of almost non-stop hiking besides when we were sleeping.
Good morning, guys, from day number 11 on the most epic road trip of my life. Honestly, each day keeps getting cooler and cooler. We've done some of the most epic things you can do in the United States, and I'm super excited for today because we are taking a 2-hour drive from Grand Tetons up to the most famous park in the United States, which is Yellowstone National Park.
Hi, welcome to Yellowstone.
Hey, what's up?
Would you like a map and a guide today?
I would love a map. Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
All right, guys, we just got here inside Yellowstone National Park, right near Old Faithful, one of the most famous geysers of all time. We are super excited to be here. A little bit more about Yellowstone. This is actually the largest volcanic system in the world, so it's pretty crazy to be standing on top of it right now.
I will say, initially we were planning on spending more than just an afternoon or most of the day in Yellowstone, and this was mid-COVID for us, and so when we arrived to our first stop, there were hundreds and hundreds of people. And so when we had just experienced so many other national parks where there weren't too many people around, we didn't really enjoy this. And plus the pandemic was going on, so we were trying to avoid being around other people. So we watched the geyser blow off, and that was really beautiful. And then we made our way over to the Grand Prismatic Spring, which was stunning. But we all agreed that there was too many people there. We weren't enjoying it as much as the other places where we felt like we had the national parks to ourselves. And so we continued on our road trip after spending that day in Yellowstone National Park. Now, I will say, if you want to avoid the crowds in Yellowstone, you got to do more of the backcountry. Those backcountry hikes are going to have much less people because obviously it requires a lot more work. These two places we went to, you could drive right up to. And so as you can imagine, a lot of people will go and check these places out if it doesn't require physical activity. Not everyone wants to hike on these trips. So since we spent most of our day in Yellowstone, we drove about 3 or 4 hours to get us a little bit closer to our next destination, which is Glacier National Park. But given it was already so late, we found a campsite along the way to stay the night there. Luckily, another national forest where we were able to stay for free. So going into day number 12, we were finishing off the last couple hours of driving up to Glacier National Park, and we checked into the West Glacier KOA. This is actually one of the nicest campgrounds you can stay at in most of the United States. The reason being is it has a lot of great amenities like a pool, a hot tub, some restaurants on the property, and some really nice hookups to set your RV up. I will say it is pricier, so we only stayed there for one night. So after spending some of the day enjoying some of the amenities over at the KOA, it's time to head over to the Trail of the Cedars. It's a 1-mile hike that gets you over to Avalanche Lake. This is one of the most picturesque spots. That's a short hike. Most people can do it. There isn't too much elevation, and it's a really cool walk. Along the way, you have a river running next to you. You have these really mystical trees, and then you get to the stunning picturesque views of Avalanche Lake upon arrival. One thing I want to mention, when we were in Glacier, most of it was shut down because of the pandemic. So you might think and see some of these hikes we're recommending and be like, hey, why wouldn't you do this trail or this trail based on some of your research? But we were very limited on what we could do and what we could see during that time period when we were there. That said, I could not recommend more of the things we did. So starting off day number 13, you're going to check out the KOA and make your way over to the Great Northern Flats River Access Site. This was my favorite campsite we stayed at the whole time. One thing I want to mention when you're staying at free campsites, a lot of people will leave in the morning, so the best opportunity to get a spot if you don't have to reserve it ahead of time, which usually you don't, is to get there as early as possible to grab whatever the best spot is available.
All right, guys, we just made a quick stop over here at the Visitor Center here in West Glacier so we can get an idea of what trails are even open right now. Unfortunately, with COVID season, as well as a lot of snow on some of these trails, it's limited on what we're able to see and do right now. But we're about to head over, do some rafting. It's about $65 per person, and we have a group of 11 of us going for it. So I'm super stoked to hop on the river.
It was category 2 to 3 rapids, so somewhat intermediate. but we had a really good guide that made us feel comfortable and was a really cool experience to do it. They don't have too many accidents on there, so if it's your first time, they'll give you a full rundown and they'll make sure you know how to paddle, and it's not like you're dropping down any waterfalls or anything, so it's not as scary as you might imagine whitewater rafting initially. I was so glad I did it because it was such a cool experience. So after doing some amazing whitewater rafting, it's time to head back over to the campsite. This night we just enjoyed our campsite because the sunset was absolutely stunning. Going into day number 14.
Good morning, guys. We just woke up for a bright and early 4 a.m. kayaking canoe trip of Lake McDonald. Not gonna lie, it was super hard to wake up this morning because we were up having a little fun around the fire, shooting a music video until like 1 in the morning. So we literally probably, got like 2-3 hours of sleep at most. But we're here now about to catch sunrise, and I have a feeling it is going to be a super beautiful one because it's one of those mornings where you have a very light amount of sun breaking through the clouds, and if we get the right burn off, it's going to make these beautiful colors. So I'm super pumped up to show you this, guys, because Lake McDonald's one of the most famous lakes out here that a lot of people come to see, especially for like the really bright colored stones and the reflections on the lake. Just so many beautiful things to see. So let's go check this place out.
It is one of the most picturesque sunrises I've ever seen. We rented our kayak the day before from a place called Glacier Outfitters. They're right in the APGAR village. So after doing some kayaking, we had a very low-key afternoon, got some rest of course after waking up so early. We did some grilling, and we also met a couple friends near Lake McDonald earlier in the day that we invited over for a little campfire. So it was a really low-key day. You could also go and do more hikes in the evening too, but we loved our campsite so much we just wanted to hang out and do some camping, do some grilling out, and enjoy each other's company. And I want to mention that having these relaxing and rest days are important because already 2 weeks into the trip, you've done a lot of hiking, you've been on the road a lot, you've done a lot of activities. It can get really exhausting. So just having some time to chill out was really good for rejuvenation. So going into day number 15, this was another driving day. We had a 10-hour drive to get us from Glacier National Park to Portland, Oregon. Portland's where we grabbed some dinner, checked out the town for a little bit, and then we made our way over to Cannon Beach for the night. So Cannon Beach is a really famous beach that's just about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Portland on the coast, and we wanted to make sure we got Cannon Beach on the list before we made our way over to Crater Lake the next day. So there wasn't too much that we did this day. It required a lot of driving. Cannon Beach though, it's a really cool place. You can have fires on the beach, so I thought that was really unique. We were able to get a feel for what the locals do that live in the area. It's a stunning beach. So going into day number 16, make sure to wake up, enjoy the beach at Cannon Beach for a little bit before making your way further south in Oregon down to Devil's Punch Bowl. You'll stop at Devil's Punch Bowl and hang out there. You can probably spend an hour and a half exploring this area. It's a really, really mystical part of Oregon, a really, really cool place to see. So much different than Zion National Park, Glacier, Grand Canyon, just vastly different.
All right, guys, we just got down here into the Devil's Punch Bowl, and as you can see, it is pretty intimidating behind me right now. Yeah, they're messing with me right now because around 3 p.m. the tide gets too high to even be down here. So when we asked for directions on how to get down here, the guy even warned us. And that's why I have a little bit of adrenaline pumping right now, because at any given moment, this thing's gonna completely fill up with water. But try and get here before 3. I don't know if that changes depending on the time of year, but right now we're here in June, and it is a great time to come and explore this place. It is a really mystical and otherworldly feel. You have these like insanely foggy mountains, you have waves crashing, you just have this whole Oregon coast experience. So definitely come check this place out. We're gonna head out before the tide gets too high.
It felt like a whole nother country we were in. So after checking out Devil's Punch Bowl, it's time to make the final cruise.
Changed clothes and changed locations. We just got here to Salt Creek Falls on our way to Crater Lake. We're about 1 hour out and we decided let's make a quick stop. So here we are about to go check out a beautiful waterfall. We'll see you there. ...286 feet of beauty. A quick stop that we came across just by driving past it, and we see the second largest waterfall in Oregon. So pretty pumped up to see it, but back on the road to Crater Lake.
It's time to make the final cruise over to Crater Lake National Park. We made it just in time for sunset. We got a little peek of what it looks like at sunset in Crater Lake, which is a stunning national park. It's actually the deepest lake in the United States, somewhere around 2,000 feet deep. We found another free campsite here since we didn't need to hook up our plumbing again. It is a really great place to stay. We stayed at the top of this mountain. Now, we got our RV up there, but it was not easy, and I wouldn't recommend driving a huge RV like we drove up there. Our 37 foot, I believe it was, did not have an easy time getting up there, and we got lucky that nothing happened to it. But the views to wake up to were amazing. No one is around us. We had the whole place to ourselves, and we had some cool areas where we could go and hang out and enjoy a morning coffee looking out into these vast forests. After enjoying those morning views, a nice little fire, and maybe if you have a DJ with you, a little music in the morning, it's time to make your way back over to Crater Lake National Park.
All right guys, and we made it to our main spot, which is here on Crater Lake. This place is even more stunning than it was when we showed it to you last night, because it is a blue sky, clear day, and the water is so still.
And do some more exploring of some of the trails over there. It is, like I said, a stunning view, and it felt like a completely different place the next morning when we were there, and it was a perfectly sunny day, so you could really see that vividly blue, ultra blue color. This was a national park that you don't need to spend too much time at, but just spending maybe 4 or 5 hours there doing a little hike like we did is enough time to feel like you've really explored Crater Lake National Park. After spending the afternoon checking out Crater Lake, you're going to want to start driving towards Yosemite National Park. It is an 8-hour drive, so I don't recommend necessarily driving all the way down because it's a long distance, especially if you spent most of the day at Crater Lake like we did. So we found about a midway point to drive 4 or 5 hours, get us about halfway there, and we found just a local Walmart parking lot to stay the night at. So Walmarts and I believe Home Depots, don't quote me on this exactly, allow you to stay in their parking lots for free. So it wasn't by any means any sort of nice campsite we stayed at, but we really just needed a spot to park our RV for the night and then get on the road first thing in the morning. So going into day number 18, we continued our drive roughly another 4 hours to get us there. We made a stop at the Don Pedro Reservoir. We wanted to get a little swimming in, and so we went down, swam in the lake for a little bit, and enjoyed our time over there before making our way further down to the Stanislaus National Forest. The Stanislaus National Forest is actually right outside Yosemite National Park, another free campsite for us to stay at. As you can see, we were able to save a lot of costs staying in these national forests. So in the Stanislaus National Forest, we had a nice little campsite. So one thing I want to mention, if you do want to stay in Yosemite National Park, you'll need to have planned this road trip very, very far in advance. I can't give you exact dates, but my buddy Cody said some of these campsites book out a year in advance. So just know that. Luckily for us, we didn't plan our road trip more than maybe 6 weeks before, and it was COVID season, so less people were going there, and we were able to get a spot in the national forest. And since we had a rental car most of the time with us, we had one of our friends driving a rental car, we had the option of leaving our RV a little bit further outside in the Stanislaus Forest like we did, and then it was a 45-minute drive for us to get into Yosemite National Park. So later, after we got settled into our campsite in the Stanislaus National Forest, we cruised on over into Yosemite amazing views driving in, and we did the Taft Point hike for sunset. It was so stunning, one of the most beautiful sunset hikes I've ever done. It brought us right to the edge of the cliffs where we could see far out into the distance, and it was a magical experience. I really recommend that you do this hike. Taft Point is so beautiful, and it's not that tough of a hike either. It's pretty flat most of the way getting out to the point where you can see the sunset. Going into day number 19, you're going to want to wake up bright and early and do the Mist Trail.
All right guys, we just woke up for a 5 a.m. hike here in Yosemite. Honestly, the best time to see Yosemite National Park is during the golden hours, both early in the morning and late in the evening. So we checked that box last night, saw a beautiful sunset, and now we're here bright and early about to do a nice long hike. Ranger Rick, tell us a little bit about this hike though, bro.
We are at the featured trail of Yosemite. This is the Mist Trail, world famous hike. You go 3.6 miles all the way up to the Vernon Falls, and then you actually have the option to continue on to Nevada Falls. The views up there are awesome of Half Dome, of the whole Yosemite Valley, and then you can actually get a full round loop if you take down the John Muir Trail. So you can knock out the Mist Trail and the John Muir Trail and see falls. So highly recommended hike. Let's get it.
This was my most favorite hike of the whole trip. It was a lot of elevation and it was a lot of work, but I will say that our crew was pretty distracted the whole time. There were constantly views changing. There were multiple waterfalls that we went past on our way up. And overall, the cliffs in Yosemite are so unique with that gray rock look that it truly did distract us, I feel like, from how much elevation we went up. So on day number 20, you're going to be leaving Yosemite, sadly. I honestly wish I could have spent like 2 or 3 more days here. It was such a beautiful national park. But anyways, it's time to cruise over to Joshua Tree National Park, or you can go to the Sequoia Redwood area and see some massive trees. We wanted to do that, but to be honest, we were pretty tired, so we didn't want to squeeze in too much more after the hiking from the day before. So we were like, let's just go to Joshua Tree National Park, and that's where we will do our last sightseeing. And then going into day number 21, as you can imagine, it's just finishing the last drive from Joshua Tree National Park all the way back to Phoenix. So be prepared, there is a lot of driving on this final day, but it's time to drop off the RV. It's time to catch that flight if you're not going to be staying any longer in Phoenix. And so guys, that wraps up the 21-day road trip. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this doesn't cover everything in those areas. There's always going to be more things you can add on to the list, but what we did, we had an amazing time, and it was well worth putting together a video like this for you guys to help you plan your USA road trip on the western side. It was amazing. I cannot speak more highly of this trip, and I really hope you have an amazing trip as well. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you want even more tips and all the information in a full guide for you guys, I have this available for you. Link in the description below that you can go ahead and purchase for a really low price that will make your whole planning of this trip so much easier. Or if you don't want to pay for it, this whole video, you can just take some notes and you have all the information you need to have an amazing time. So guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I really hope it's been helpful and beneficial for you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comments below. If you have other recommendations on things you would have done, drop them in the comments below for anyone else that might be watching this video and wants some of your recommendations as well. So guys, thanks so much for watching this video. And guys, if you don't mind, hit that like button. It helps this channel so much. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for so many more travel videos from around the world. And thanks so much. We'll see you guys in the next video.